Hey X, long-term lurker here from New Zealand. Have a collection of somewhat strange tales from my travels around the country, mainly while fossil hunting in remote areas. Does anyone have any experiences in New Zealand? May post mine soon if there's any interest. Okay, I'll tell kind of a short one first. Will attempt my first shitty Greentext. Be me, just turned 22. Living in Christchurch, New Zealand. Decided to go hunting for fossils at a new spot. GF, now X. Not interested in that type of thing particularly, but keen to come for adventure. Jump in GF's 4x4 and head about 2 hours out of the city onto desolate logging land, redwoods or our equivalent as far as I can see on both sides of the narrow dirt road. Follow map on phone till we reach the location. Park car on roadside. Sunny day, still cooldish being South Island. Fuck yeah, excited to get digging. GF says she's gonna stay in the car as I'm only scouting the rock formations to see if we're in the right area. Go over embankment and out of sight of car. Find exposed rocks in business.jpg. Struck with the sudden near overwhelming sense of sadness. Start to feel fear. Just a preface, I'm a happy guy and this is not something that happens often. Get the sense that I'm not alone. Can't focus on the job at hand and I'm deeply saddened for some reason. Not sure why, but know the feeling is external, as if it belongs to someone else. Decide to head back the car. Approach the ute. GF is looking away, dead staring into the forest on the opposite side of the road to where I was. She doesn't look away from the tree line the entire time I'm walking up to her. The windows are down and there's little to no wind. Finally, get to car. Feeling of sadness had turned nearly to complete anguish at this point. Look over the roof of the car as I think I see movement in the forest. In disbelief, entire tree line in maybe a 5-meter area is blurry and moving like a heat wave coming off a tar road on an extremely hot day. Shit you not. The rest of the bush on either side is perfectly clear and swaying in the light breeze. Stare at this patch of almost clear mist. Doesn't move in the wind, just hovers there maybe a meter into the trees. Staring at this thing. Disappears. Not dissipates, just disappears. Treeline and forest look as they should in less than a second. Emotional wave disappears. Just kind of feel empty and a little in shock. Open car door. GF nearly fills her pants. She's in tears and terrified. She saw it too. Begs me to just get in the car so she can drive away. Never comes fossil hunting with me again. I have more stories if you're interested. Also, I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. Okay Anons, I will post 1 or 2 stories about experiences on native Maori lands tonight. Don't let the thread die. Just as a side note, I grew up in the UK and immigrated to New Zealand at age 9. I used to live in what I could only describe as a haunted house back home. I have a few stories from my very stern, no-nonsense British parents from the place when I was a young kid if anyone's interested in that too. Alright, here's a quick one from the perspective of my dad in the UK house. Have light up Homer Simpson slippers son Anon gave me when he was 5 for Father's Day. Wear them around the house. They kinda have little LEDs on the top that are pressure sensitive to when you step in them. Regular night at home. Put kids in bed, have a cup of tea with wife. British. Kick slippers off to opposite sides of the room, as always to piss off wife. Both get in bed and sleep. Both get waken up at maybe 2 to 3 a.m. and notice room is dimly lit up with blinking, colorful lights. What? Hear shuffling footsteps in room. Look over the edge of the bed. Slippers are fucking meeting in the middle of the room and shuffling to the edge of the bed. Slippers stop neatly together and shuffling sound stops. Staring at the slippers, can't believe what we're both seeing. LEDs go out. Turn lights on and freak out. Wife not too phased. Been around a lot of this stuff. I haven't. Dad still looks very uncomfortable talking about it even today. He's 6'3" and by no means a coward. Still wears the slippers. Some additional info on my first story. Around this strange area encountered while fossil hunting. Here it is on a map. Red is where the car is parked. White is where the entity was. Blue is the rough area I was digging around. Okay, sorry to keep you all waiting, but this may be a long one, so buckle up. Be 2021, still living in Christchurch, still fossil hunting. Out with friend at a fantastic spot. Let's call her Anna. We've been here multiple times in both daylight and at nighttime, with nothing like this ever happening before. Huge storm hits Christchurch a few days beforehand, some of the heaviest rain in years. My flat loses part of its roof and leaks on all 3 floors. Decide to visit the location, a small farm on the Canterbury coast, about an hour's drive from the city. farm has a great beach with huge slit stone cliffs full of fossils. We both know the storm could have knocked out a ton of new material down onto the beachhead. Anna doesn't finish work till 9, so we arrive at the farm around 11 p.m, walking through farmland and down to the beach. We have floodlights as it's pitch black and this is far out of the city, windy as hell and bitterly cold. Both excited to get onto the beach and see what we bring home. We follow the path down and start our trek, scanning rocks and the cliffside with our torches as we go. Going great, find a huge tiger shark tooth and a nice crab so far. Think I can hear a faint sound somewhere in the distance. Pay no mind to it. Hear it a few more times and decide to listen. Anna's maybe 50 meters behind me, closer to the tide line, and I'm up against the cliffs. Sounds like a man's voice shouting something in a language I can't quite make out, carried over the wind, but it's not English. Must be other Fossikers somewhere along the beach. Not unheard of to have another team down there at night, but can't see anyone or any lights. Keep doing what I'm doing and keep hearing the sound. Start to be able to make out what it might be. If you've ever been to New Zealand, you've definitely heard te reo before. It's the language of the native Maori population. Sounds like a man shouting, "Ah!" or something similar, definitely in a Maori accent. Shouting is definitely Maori. Sounds like it's coming from somewhere up on the cliff tops. Black Arrow and Pick related. Shine light up the huge face, but can't see anything up there. At this point, Anna has made her way over to me. Don't mention the sound and we keep making our way further along the coast. Hear the shouting intermittently as I'm walking. Anna stops, shines torch up the cliff face, and asks me if I hear anything. Ask what she's hearing, and she tells me she's not sure, but it sounds like shouting in te reo, and it's definitely a woman's voice, but she can't quite make it out over the wind. Tell her that I've been hearing the same thing, but I'm certain it's a man's voice. She puts her hand up and says, "Listen, can't hear anything." She's telling me she's hearing it right now. Hear the man shouting again, ask if she can hear it. She hears nothing. Okay then, so we can each individually hear our own gender's sound, but not the other? Decide to keep walking, about 12:30 a.m. at this point. Chat about the area and the paleontological history. Fucking nerds. We both haven't heard this shouting in a while. Both assume it was nothing but our imagination. Come up to the corner we round before Crab Alley, White Arrow. We call it that because of the abundance of fossil crabs. Super creative. There's been a huge cliff slide on the corner, rocks and debris everywhere. Small space between cliffside and ocean where we can go around without climbing or getting wet. Look back at Anna as we agree to check out the fallen cliff on our way back. Take a step forward. Fucking freeze immediately on the spot. Sheer, unbridled terror. If I hadn't pissed in the tide pool before, I would have pissed my pants at 23 years old. I was so scared. Literally don't move a muscle. Anna lets out a small whimper from right behind me. She clearly feels the same as I do. In front of us is a clear stretch of beach, illuminated by the light of the moon, which came out from the clouds a few minutes previous. Maybe 50 meters away, the ground is moving like a heat wave, almost exactly like my last post. I felt like prey. There's no better way to put it. Anna asks quietly if I can feel that. She sounds absolutely terrified. I can feel the air almost solidify in my lungs. Try to breathe, can't get a full breath. The entire beach before me feels enraged, and it's letting us know we couldn't be more unwelcome there. Feel like 110% certain that one more step would mean death. Slowly back away, trembling and genuinely traumatized. Presence follows us. Can feel it millimeters off of my back. We calmly but hurriedly begin to walk back to the truck. We're both dead silent, eyes looking forward, flashlights off, walking side by side. Strangely, feels as if I'm in the passenger seat of my own body. Get to the slope which leads off the beach and back to the car. Can feel the presence stay on the sand. Hurriedly climb the slope and just get the fuck out. Look back only once. The entirety of the beach in the bay in the photo is moving with a heat wave effect. Actually start crying. Get to the car, floor it and speed off. Anna is completely shut off. Doesn't say a word until we're about halfway home. She starts crying uncontrollably and asking, "What was that?" repeatedly. We pull over at McDonald's and get some food and calm ourselves down, begin to talk about the event. Greentext over, and now onto our theories and a revelation from a friend who confirmed our suspicions. We were sure that we accidentally stumbled onto Maori sacred tapu land somehow, as we both got the very clear feeling that we were trespassing or disrespecting whatever was there. We thought back to the voices we were hearing earlier on from the cliff tops, and both thought they were some sort of warning to not go further, which we had unknowingly ignored. It just kind of made sense at the time and still does. We were warned to stay away, and upon crossing a certain line, we were met with what I could only call spiritual violence. It was absolutely the scariest experience of my life, and I've been through a lot. I asked a couple of local fossil hunters about the area, and a friend who found greenstone tools and artifacts at the same beach. The Maori people have a cultural and spiritual connection to Panamu, or greenstone, and used it for tools and ceremonial items. The dumbass took the artifacts home too. Also talked to the owner of the farm, and the spot where we felt the unrest was a Maori eating ground, where they cooked together as a tribe in the 1500s-1600s. Feel free to ask any questions. I'd like as many people to see this as possible, as I don't see many Kiwi anons on this board. We had accidentally stumbled onto Maori sacred Tapu land somehow. Well shit, I wasn't gonna post, but reminds me of a story my dad told me. It's not much, but kinda relates to what you posted. Dad and his father-in-law are hiking in the Karangahake Valley in Coromandel. They go off trail a bit, start to feel sad/unhappy presence. Dad's father-in-law says they shouldn't be here. Said he felt a general discomfort that got more persistent as time went on. They tried walking back to the trail but couldn't find the path. What the fuck? My dad said they only walked a little bit off but couldn't find shit. Getting panicky now. Feelings of discomfort increase into strong anxiety. They start hearing dogs barking all around them from nearby. Starts to get closer and closer to them, like a pack of wild dogs are almost encircling them. Barking gets louder. Can't actually see any dogs, just a barking and grim presence. Suddenly, they make it back to the track and the feeling goes away, along with the barking almost instantly. An old Maori elder tells them later that they were the ghost of dogs that are now extinct. What the fuck? No ancient dogs in New Zealand, lol. Says the area they were on was Tapu. Makes you wonder, and my dad wasn't someone to ever lie about this shit. Karangahake Gorge Anon. It seems like a lot of Maori spirits and Tapu grounds come with a great sense of sadness to them. Also, the measurement of time completely disappearing, and a nervous/anxious, almost trance-like state. I 100% believe in your post based on my own experiences. I have a story from the Coromandel, from when I went with my partner a few months ago, but it's near the peninsula. Also, New Zealand does have extinct dogs. They're called kuri, and were brought over by Polynesian settlers in the 1200s, so ghost dogs would not surprise me. Okay lads, here's another story. Not as spoopy as my beach experience, but more experience from Maori land. 2021, be about 4 months before beach experience. Decide to follow a tip and head to a new location in search of Cretaceous marine reptile fossils. Place is in the Waipara River in North Canterbury. Place has been a significant location for the local iwi tribes for centuries, but didn't find out till later on that day. Go to the location about 12 noon, park the ute and walk down gravel path to the river. There's no path that runs parallel, so I have to wade about waist deep through the river itself to head upstream. Things are going well so far. Area is beautiful and there's not another person around for miles. Round a corner and see a high gravel hillside running down to the riverbank. Notice something white contrasting against a gray/brown gravel face. Walk to the riverbank and begin to scale up the hill. Get to what I'm looking at and realize it's a fragment of moa bone. Moa were gigantic flightless birds native only to New Zealand. Bones are extremely rare, but it's my first time finding material from them. Look around and a little further up the bank I can see a much larger piece. It's an entire moa femur. Extremely excited. This is an unprecedented find for me and will make an awesome addition to my collection. Carefully wrap and apply plaster sheets from my backpack as they are hollow and notoriously fragile. This was a subfossil where the mineralization process wasn't entirely complete, and meaning the bone was extremely fragile. Cup of tea while the plaster is setting. Still a Brit bong at heart. Everything is ready to go. Bubble wrap and pack into backpack and continue upstream. See a fantail, small native bird, from across the bank fly over to me. Starts cheeping excitedly and flying in a circular pattern around me. That's weird. They're usually pretty timid, but this one might not be too used to humans. The further I go upstream, the further I get upstream, the more fantails join him. There's honestly between 12 to 15 at this point. Hard to count as they're all in constant motion. I've had the feeling of being watched for a while now. Keep catching movement from the tree line on either side of me from time to time. Just shadows moving through the trees that aren't from the trees. This story takes place around a month after the event with my ex-GF, and it's only a few kilometers from the location, so I know something isn't right. I realized that far too late. I felt a hand placed gently onto my right shoulder and felt the strong presence of a woman behind me. Lose all control over my body, like someone else is piloting me upstream. The rest of the story is a complete haze and pieced together from fragmented memories. I will try my best to Greentext it, but I'm not sure how it will go. Get visions as I'm walking. Can feel myself walking as the water gets deeper, but am extremely calm. Same feeling of intense sadness is back. Visions of dark, shadowy figures, definitely men, stalking me through the forest, unable to step out into the daylight. Vision of a Maori woman, maybe mid-20s behind me, with a hand on my shoulder. Hard to explain, but she's aware of the men in the forest, but is confident they will stay away. Almost connected to her emotionally. Can hear the song of the forest the other anon describes. Cannot put into words, almost feels like an energy my body interprets as sound, but I can understand it. It's very emotional and has impact to it, but no words. I get flashes of what I can only say is the past, with tribal Maori people gathering around the riverbank, going about their lives. It's too much to handle, and I lose consciousness. Not like passing out, but the same thing as being blackout drunk, where your brain shuts off but the body is still operational. Wake up incredibly foggy on the bank of the river where I first entered. My boots are off, placed neatly next to my bag, wondering what the fuck just happened. Time is now nearly 5 p.m. I was only an hour upstream when the whole thing went down. I remember checking my watch frequently as I was trying to measure the time taken to reach the Cretaceous spot. Slowly get up, not afraid. I remember the event but am surprisingly calm about it. Back up and drive the way home. Stop at a small winery on the way home for a coffee. Woman running the place asks me if I've ever been at the river. Ask me what happened. Says I seem very distant and off. Tell her something strange happened. Don't elaborate because it sounds insane. Oh, I'm not surprised. There's something about that place that I can't explain. It's very old. Proceeds to tell me about multiple people being scared away from the river and others reporting lost time, emotional distress, and extreme uncomfortability. Says that the river knows when people are there and is very much alive. So yeah, that's about it for that one. Feel free to ask any questions as per usual. Just talk to my Maori flatmate about my thread. She says she has quite a few experiences she wouldn't mind telling, and some good info about Maori history. We'll get her stories over the next day or two. We'll post a few of my own too, adding context to the river story. Red is the starting point, white X is where I found the bone, blue line is upstream, with the circle being roughly where all hell broke loose. Yellow arrow is Cretaceous area, where I intended to reach. Also went back about a week later with nothing too strange occurring and found some plesiosaur bones in a huge concretion. Very cool. Also more proof. Photo facing downstream towards the forested area where events occurred. Took this photo on my return. Cretaceous formations are directly behind me. Truly a beautiful spot on a good day. Should post some of your fossil collection sometime, bro. Can't post photo bundle sadly, but here's a plesiosaur finger bone I found on the river. Nice one, dude. Thanks, man. Here's a partial of a sea urchin found at the spooky beach the night of the happening. I believe it belongs to the genus Cindaria. Unsure of the species. Flatmate sent me a tell, posting it here. She's not a 4chan user, so it isn't Greentext. Hope you enjoyed either way. Part 1. Mum's story. My mother has worked at a kindergarten in my hometown since my brother and I were babies/toddlers. Roughly around 17 years of service in the same location, with some slight pharaoh flags of activity. However, due to our experience in dealing with spirits, we know how to protect and block ourselves from potential threats of negative energies. Take note at this time, my sister and I would be cleaning after hours here for side cash and support. At this daycare, there's two sides, over 2s, toddlers, and under 2s, babies. About 3 years ago, the baby side began to grow intense with paranormal activity. The teachers or cleaners would hear random cries of babies coming from the sleeping room. Thinking a baby was forgotten, they would only arrive to an empty, dark, and morbid room. After hours, the energy in that area felt dense, as though you're stuck and there's this lonesome dark energy/spirit looming over your head, hidden but making sure you know they're there. which is why I'd assist my sister when she'd work to clean. During daycare hours was worse. All the babies were always unsettled, in fits of torment and restless sleep. Teachers feeling the tense and dark energy looming, but using each other as support. After endless weeks of activity and behavior, my mother decided to take action and insist that the daycare be blessed/cleansed, as she knew there was a restless spirit disrupting the babies and emanating a dark force of energy. A trusted psychic to our family and friends was invited to cleanse and bless the space, and to help the spirits cross over from the space. After her visit, many revelations were made for both the kindergarten and my family. First, there are many spiritual pathways and bridges the spirits can take to move around. The spirit that was in the baby section was an elder maiden from back in the days, who came through a path from the historical hospital across the road from this kindergarten. She was stuck on this side and desired to go and help nurture the babies and look after them, but didn't understand that her being here was actually scaring the babies and not really helping out the teachers. Babies and animals were extremely sensitive and aware of spirits and all energies. The medium helped assist the maiden find peace, and prior to crossing over, left a veil of good luck and fortune over the door to the baby's side, to all that cross over the threshold. Before the maiden had left, however, she had introduced a little boy who has also been with her, playing and assisting with the kids. The boy had lost his life as a baby at the hospital across the road, and had also been lost for many years. The medium and all the teachers had all walked to the other end of the center, to a bigger area, as she called this boy's ancestors to take him over to the other side. For some reason, as they were walking around the center, my mom was getting extremely hot hands. When I say hot, I mean fire. So hot that she had to run her hands under the cool tap for a long time. The medium was giving glances to my mom prior, and only realized that she was borrowing energy from my mom to cleanse the place. She later apologized but kept going. As they all walked further into the center, my mom began blurting out random things that came to her, with a detailed description of a man. As the man had arrived, they had concluded that my mom was very similar to the psychic in terms of connecting with the other side. Her spiritual side was fully awakened there during the cleansing of the kindergarten. She hears whispers and words, feels the energies, and can begin to converse. During this time, the little boy was around. They found out that the man that my mother had described was actually my uncle, who had passed when I was young. He had made gestures and said words that hit home. His death was a very tragic one and never forgotten. So this encounter helped my mom blossom more into this role. It was his son that him and his partner had lost, but this was kept secret from the entire family. So you could imagine the surprise when the siblings of my uncle were told, and they were unsure at first. Only once the partner, who was alive at the time, was informed of this did everyone realize that there was more truth to the story, confirming her and my uncle had kept this event to themselves. The psychic and the teachers all gathered. Ancestors of my uncle and this boy all showed up to help him cross over into the afterlife with them. Hi X, it's been a while since I last posted. I'm using the pseudonym Tarnbeck, but I'm the Kiwi fossil hunting anon from a year or so back. I've returned to share a number of odd encounters from my childhood house, outside of Warrington in the UK. I'm currently at work, so my replies may be delayed. I appreciate your patience. I grew up in a small town called Runcorn, next to the neighboring town of Warrington. I spent the first 10 years of my life in the same house before immigrating to New Zealand with my family. The house wasn't anything special, not an old Victorian building, nor a new construction. From the best of my knowledge, it was built in the 80s. However, the events that took place were far from normal. One of my formative memories is waking up to my room bathed in a brilliant blue glow. I don't remember how old I was during the experience. My best guess would be 5 years old. My room was one on the second story, facing our fenced-off backyard, with the surrounding forest outside its border. I distinctly remember 3 figures inside my room. Their appearance was hazy and almost two-dimensional, as if they were shadows on my walls. I remember them approaching my bed, and then that's it. For the first 10 years of my life, I was utterly terrified of anything even remotely related to aliens, for no apparent reason as well. The depiction of the stereotypical gray would cause me to freeze and have an uncontrollable panic attack, or in extreme cases, wet myself. The older I get, I'm 25 now, the more I think of that memory of the figures in my room. Was that some sort of abduction? As a young child under the age of 5, I had a habit of laughing in my sleep, sometimes until the point of tears. I would also wriggle around and stretch my arms up, as if interacting with an unseen person. This would often perplex my mom and dad, and putting them on edge. Eventually, they paid it no mind, chalking it up to just a normal occurrence. This was until one night. They were both watching a movie on the couch downstairs, the living room adjacent to the staircase that leads to the upstairs, and a corridor connecting the landing to my room. Mom decides it's time to check up on me. I would have been around 3. My younger sister wasn't born yet. She heads upstairs, leaving my dad on the couch. Reaching the top of the landing, she can see through a small crack in my door, and by the moonlight of my open curtain, a figure standing over my bed, and me, as usual, laughing in my sleep. Assuming my dad had beat her upstairs and was playing with me in the crib, she headed back down, finding my dad on the couch. She comments that he made it back down there fast, adamantly refuting that he had not left the couch. They both flew upstairs to find the door wide open, every light in the room now on, and me laughing to the point of tears, sitting up in bed with my eyes closed, fast asleep. One of the strangest incidents occurring at the home happened to my mother. This occurred in early 2007, when our belongings were being removed from the house by movers and placed in containers ready to ship over. We had an oven/cooker top with an extractor fan attached above. This fit into an alcove in our kitchen, with about an inch between the extraction unit and the ceiling. The whole unit was about 7 feet tall, 4 feet off the wall, so quite sizable. For years, socks had gone missing in the house, just an odd one here and there, but we were left with a large number of single socks in a drawer, without their partner. Mom came home from work one afternoon to find the movers finishing up for the day. One of them asked them, "Are these yours?" handing her 3 neat piles of clean, pressed socks. She quickly realized that the socks were the many that had disappeared over the years. In disbelief, she asked the movers where on earth they had found the socks, as she had practically turned the house upside down on many an occasion trying to find them. The worker told her that they were in 3 neat piles at the very back of the 1-inch gap between the extraction unit and the ceiling. The socks didn't have a speck of dust on them, but the top of the unit was caked in a thick layer. There was no evidence the unit had ever been moved. What the fuck? Another strange encounter from New Zealand. I lived with my girlfriend at the time, and 3 other people in a 3-story shared house. The house itself was quite spacious, with one couple living on the ground floor, me and my GF living on the second, and with our flatmate down the hall on the second floor as well. The staircase was a spiral one that ran through the middle of all 3 floors and made a significant amount of noise even when walked upon with caution. A regular occurrence was to hear loud footsteps stomping over the top floor, which was the lounge/kitchen area. These footsteps would be accompanied by the sounds of items clanging and sometimes even dragging sounds. It used to freak out my partner, and I'd often ascend the stairs with a flashlight, as unfortunately, the light switch to the upper floor was located in the middle of the lounge, only to see nothing moved about and nobody upstairs. It definitely wasn't a flatmate out for the midnight snack, as the sound would only ever cease the moment your foot touched the staircase, which was the only way down, aside from an 8-meter jump from the balcony. Upon asking the guy on our level, he said he'd heard it a few times, but was never usually up that late, as the commotion usually started around 2 a.m. He just assumed it was one of us. The sound persisted, and though spooky, we would just let it go, preferring not to think about it. We'd all heard the house settling before, and though we all knew the sounds were certainly not that, it was best just to let it go. Until one night, the entire household was awakened by an almighty racket that shook the whole building. It was one of the loudest bangs I've heard, mixed with the sounds of breaking wood. It sounded like someone had torn the kitchen cabinets off the walls, sending items everywhere and breaking. I flew out of my room to meet the others already sprinting up the staircase, flashlight in hand. We were expecting the place to look like hell itself had opened, but there was nothing. Nothing was out of place. No doors had slammed, not a single piece of cutlery had moved from where it had been the night before. It was a calm night with no notable wind. We could not for the life of us come up with an explanation for such racket. Still kinda gives me the creeps. It sounded like someone had aimed a double barrel at the floor and pulled both triggers. Nothing of that magnitude ever happened again, but the footsteps and other strange noises continued. We all agreed to let whatever was hanging up there after dark have its space. Cozy thread. Thank you, friend. I'm open to questions if you have any. I do actually. Do you get any strange dreams since being in New Zealand? Or are all of your memories/feelings sort of bottled back in that portion of time? I'm living in Australia now. In New Zealand, I had many a strange dream. One in particular stands out and was utterly terrifying. That looks creepy. You don't have to touch that if you don't want to, but I'm sort of intrigued. I'll go into it. It was the start of the first lockdown in 2019. I was living in an empty flat as my flatmates had all gone home with their families. My girlfriend at the time had decided to stay at mine during the whole thing, so it was just the two of us. I experienced my first, or at least the first false awakening I was aware of. I saw my girlfriend standing in the middle of the bedroom, only illuminated faintly by the light coming through my bedroom window. I asked her what she was doing, and when my eyes began to adjust to the gloom, I could see she was facing away from me, clutching her chest. She was covered in blood to the point that it was pouring from her back, coming from several enormous gouges, as if someone had taken to her with a machete. I remember saying, "Holy shit," as I realized the entire room was flooded with blood. She was far past ankle deep in it. The walls, as I looked around, had strange symbols painted into it too. The more I looked around, the more I saw. Looking away from the walls and back to her, she was now standing over me. It looked like she was completely disemboweled. She was cradling her insides in her arms, spilling out from a catastrophic wound. She also had no eyes, as if they were gouged out. She then moved with incredible speed, now straddling me, with one hand on my neck, holding me down. I could physically move, despite my struggle. She was strong enough to keep me helplessly pinned, her other hand raised above my head, and was jammed deep into my chest. Fingers first, like a blade. I felt everything. I woke up screaming, falling out of the bed, and scrambling away from it in hysterics. It took me quite a while to come back to reality. Man, fuck all that. That's seriously disturbing. Yeah, I've had some serious nightmares in my time, like images and scenarios plucked straight out of hell. But yours beats mine by a mile. Sorry you experienced that. Any other remnants from your time back in that house, or has that been the worst of it? If we're talking about the 3-storied house, there is one other incident that occurred there of note. I was home alone sick, as the rest of the flat had gone to the beach that day, and I wasn't feeling all that well. I was upstairs in the lounge with the curtains and windows open. It was a nice sunny day, and I was hoping the fresh air would do me some good. I was sitting on the couch on my phone, just scrolling, when something caught my eye. A black mass in the shape of a person, crossing my vision, entered the kitchen. Only saw it for a split second. I thought one of my flatmates had come home early and walked over to say hello, only to find nobody in the kitchen. They would have had to come back past me to leave, and I was pretty quick, as I wasn't entirely sure who it was. Due to recent events at the house noted above, I decided to check the rest of the place out. Nobody home. All cars gone. That was the only visual sighting there.